whatever, yataha, wherever, nischalati, verily agitated, manaha, the mind, chanchalam, flickering, asthiram, unsteady, tataha, from there, tataha, and thereafter, niyamya, regulating, etat, this, atmani, in the self, eva, certainly, vasam, control, nayet, must bring in. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: from whatever and wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. Translation with repetition: from whatever and wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The nature of the mind is flickering and unsteady, but a self-realized yogi has to control the mind. The mind should not control him. One who controls the mind and therefore the senses as well is called Goswami or Swami, and one who is controlled by the mind is called Godasa or the servant of the senses. A Goswami knows the standard of sense happiness. In transcendental sense happiness, the senses are engaged in the service of Rishikesha, or the supreme owner of the senses, Krishna. Serving Krishna with purified senses is called Krishna consciousness. That is the way of bringing the senses under full control. What is more? That is the highest perfection of yoga practice. The sense the wonderful transcendental Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we are in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Am I audible?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, we are in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and this is called Sankhya Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga. And of the verses of Bhagavad Gita, the 700 verses of Bhagavad Gita, this is one of the most practical and powerful verses of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says something which we must do, which we must practice. Now, to understand this verse, we need to go a little bit behind and see what has happened so far. So our title for today's session is the highest perfection of yoga practice. Okay, and if you just go back a little bit, 2-3 verses, there's a reason I'm saying, because the why always makes the subject more interesting. Not too much, but a little bit. So there is a build-up which is required for today's verse to understand that. We will not go too far. If we go to the text number 20 and 23, very interesting verse, because they are 4 verses together. Sorry, they are 3 verses, no, 4 verses. And there is something very significant which Krishna says, because that is how the build-up is happening. So let us see these verses. Yatro paramate chittam niruddham yoga sevaya Yatra chaivatmanatmanam pashyanatmani tushyati. Sukham atyantikam yattat buddhigrahyam atindriyam vetti yatra na chaivayam stitas chalati tatpatah. Yam labdhva chaparam labham manyate nadhikam tatah yasmin stito na dukkhena gurunapi vichalyate. Tam vidya dukkha samyoga viyogam yoga samgita. This verse, actually, if somebody just hears this verse, the series of verses together, just the translation, they themselves, in themselves, are so powerful, and so much of meaning and depth is there that one will forget one's material life. Actually, material life will have no standing in front of this. It is so powerful. Let's see what is the translation of this. What Krishna says in this verse is, in the stage of perfection, which we are trying to see, today's title is the highest perfection. So in the stage of perfection, which is known as trance or samadhi, mind you, that's the ultimate goal of a Ashtanga yogi. So in the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. So what is the symptom? First symptom is it is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind. So you should be able to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. So it is a state which is not boring, which is not, now what to do, I have reached there, but there is no activity. No, you are able to relish and rejoice in the self, which is a person is unaware unless the mind is pure, because you can only see the self by the help of your pure mind. The perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth. And upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. Actually, the title for today's verse is perfectly described by Krishna in this verse, in 6.22-23, because this is the highest perfectional stage. Then what need is there for this verse, for today's verse? What is it? Why is it that this verse is required? Because this verse, if you see properly, if you analyze, it's a very beautiful verse, and it talks about all the states, how one can reach there, and having reached, what are the symptoms of a man. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Yam labdhva chaparam labham, there is nothing else. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken. Guru napi vichalyate. Before this, Krishna has spoken about the flame in a windless state, which is steady, but it is difficult to be in a windless situation. Life is always filled with wind. There is always turbulence, there is always disturbance. But in this verse, he is telling Guru napi vichalyate. Even if you are shaken, forget about wind. Even if you are shaken, you are not disturbed. Now, when Krishna spoke this, actually in the purport, Prabhupada says something very, very practical, which we need to see. We will see this and then we will go to today's verse because it has strong connection. The second last purport, the second last paragraph, Prabhupada writes, the best practice of yoga in this age is Krishna consciousness. Pay attention. The best practice of yoga in this age is Krishna consciousness, which is not baffling. It's not difficult. It's not difficult to fathom or understand. It's not baffling. It's easy. The best practice of yoga in this age is Krishna consciousness, which is not baffling. A Krishna conscious person is so happy in his occupation that he does not aspire after any other happiness. There are many impediments, especially in this age of hypocrisy, to practicing Hatha Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. But there is no such problem in executing Karma Yoga or Bhakti Yoga. Today in the morning we were seeing the reference to a verse in Bhagavatam. It says what happens as Kali Yuga progresses. That all of us were part of this Kali Yuga. So what happens to this is even in Bhagavatam, in a verse in 1.4.17. Final pause is there, but this one which you spoke in the morning. Bhautikanam cha bhavanam sakti hrasam cha tatkritam ashradadhana nissatvam durmedhan prashita ayusha. Ayusha is getting reduced. Bhautikanam cha bhavanam sakti hrasam cha tatkritam ashradadhanan nissatvam durmedhan prashita ayusha. Only the first paragraph I'm reading, first portion of the verse. The great sage, who was fully equipped in knowledge, could see through his transcendental vision the deterioration of everything material due to the influence of the age. He could see that the faithless people in general would be reduced in duration of life. People will become more and more faithless. Faith is such an important aspect in scriptures, in sadhus, in the spiritual master. It'll very rampantly, it'll reduce. Due to the influence of the age, he could also see that the faithless people in general would be reduced in duration of life. Duration of life will reduce for no reasons practically. Some problem or other, which are unheard of in earlier days, will manifest. And would be impatient due to lack of goodness. They are very impatient. Nisatwan, because Sattva is so much lacking, people are very impatient. Slight provocation, it leads to big quarrel, fight, all kinds of things. Thus he contemplated for the welfare of men. So we are living in that age, which we can't change, which we can't help. So that is why Prabhupada is telling there are many impediments, especially in this age of hypocrisy, to practice Hatha Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. That is why Bhakti Yoga is so good. But then, moving on, in the next paragraph, Prabhupada says there are 4 things which we should not forget and we should practice, we should learn this. What are these 4 things? Let's pay attention. As long as the material body exists, one has to meet the demands of the body, namely eating, sleeping, defending, and mating. That nobody can, you can't be exempt from that because you have this material body. These are bodily demands. But then there is a but, and pay attention from here. But a person who's in pure Bhakti Yoga or in Krishna consciousness does not arouse the senses while meeting the demands of the body. So this is the first point which Prabhupada is making, which is worth paying attention. Nobody is saying that don't eat, don't sleep, don't defend, don't mate. There is a place for everything, and one can indulge in this. But the advice which Prabhupada has given is a person who is in pure Bhakti Yoga or in Krishna consciousness does not arouse the senses while meeting the demands of the body. There is a demand of the body, but you should not arouse the senses. To give one example of this, very practical example which I have seen in my life. So in ISKCON Bangalore, we used to go for these trips. Every year we go, and with the young adults, we go for some pilgrimage. I remember one such occasion when we had gone for a trip. Usually there'll be some backup option of carrying some murmuras. What do you call this? Puffed rice. In case you ran out of food, or where you are supposed to get some food in some stations, if it doesn't come, then you have some backup. And they add some tomato, cucumber, and they make something, and that will be distributed. One of the trips, there was a devotee. He's still there. I don't want to name him. And he slept off for some reason. The train, different people have different habits, so he slept off. And prasadam was distributed. And his turn, when it came, some people tried to wake him up politely. He slept off. He didn't get up. And afterwards, he got up by the time prasadam is over. And the next station is about 6-7 hours. So he came to the people who had this stock of puffed rice, murmura. And then he asked, I'm very hungry, can you give me a plate of puffed rice? I don't need anything else. So he took a plate of puffed rice, started eating. I don't know if you have eaten puffed rice. I'm sure you have. We are eating a lot. If you start eating puffed rice, one serving is never enough. At least I have experienced. You need one more time at least. So he asked for one more time. So we gave him one more time. One more time was not enough. Then he asked, "Kahan pe hai? Where have you kept it?" So we showed him. Actually, they were small polythenes packed and wrapped and kept, like big polythenes. He finished one complete pack of puffed rice. Now what happens is, when you start taking this puffed rice, which is very dry, I don't know how much experience you have, but if you start taking, it starts sticking to your palates, and it requires a lot of saliva, a lot of juice for it to get digested. So now this person has eaten and it's night, and then in the morning he started having problems. And the problem was so severe, he started having stomachache, he started having loose motion, he started having all kinds of problems. So the point, what I'm trying to say here, what I'm trying to illustrate from this example, from the story, Prabhupada is telling, but a person who's in pure bhakti yoga or Krishna consciousness doesn't arouse. Arouse is a conscious effort, doesn't arouse the senses. Don't go and indulge. Don't go and knowingly give titillation to your senses, because after that it becomes uncontrollable. Meeting the demands of the body is a bona fide, justified, legitimate requirement of the body. But arousing the senses, very, very difficult. Not advised. But a person who's in pure bhakti yoga or in Krishna consciousness doesn't arouse the senses while meeting the demands of the body. This is the first point. Rather, he accepts the bare necessities of life, making the best use of a bad bargain, and enjoys transcendental happiness in Krishna consciousness. Today in the morning, we were talking about time, and making the best use of time is to reduce our necessities. Rather, he accepts the bare necessities of life, making the best use of a bad bargain. We don't know. Actually, all of us are having some bad bargain. Our bodies, we don't have any control based on our karma and guna. We've got a body which is not just the external body, but also an internal body, which has got this mind, intelligence, false ego, which carries subtle impressions. So it is, whatever it is, it's a bad bargain that we have got. How do we make the best use of it? So here Prabhupada is saying, telling that rather he accepts the bare necessities of life, making the best use of a bad bargain, and enjoys transcendental happiness in Krishna consciousness. Third thing, he is callous towards incidental occurrences, such as accidents, disease, scarcity, even the death of a most dear relative. He is callous. It's not, these are all going to happen. These are all bound to come in life. He is callous towards incidental occurrences, such as accidents, disease, scarcity, and even the death of most dear relative. But the fourth thing, which is very important, but he is always alert to execute his duties in Krishna consciousness. This is a very important thing, because what we are practicing is called sadhana bhakti. And this whole chapter which Krishna is talking about, Sankhya Yoga, Prabhupada is giving purport related to Bhakti Yoga, related to all sadhakas. That's why these purports are very important. When we are reading, it is not just mere reading. It should not be a ritual. It should not be a niyama graha. Just for the sake of doing, I'm doing it. When we actually see this, I just put this numbers, Prabhupada has not given these numbers, but these help us remain in our proper state of sadhana. And this help us, this sadhana actually protect us in our life, because we are not liberated. Our senses are still conditioned. No matter how many kantimalas we put, no matter how much straight tilak we have and nice dhoti we wear, the inner materialist has not died. We should not forget that. Just because I have taken initiation, I'm chanting 16 rounds, doesn't mean that I have become fully purified. That is why Prabhupada is cautioning that these four things are very important. Don't arouse the senses unnecessarily, accept the bare necessities of life, making best use of bad bargain, being callous towards incidental occurrences, but being alert to one's executing of duties. There is one line in this purport which is very, very powerful and striking to me. It says, accidents never deviate him from his duty. Accidents never deviate him from his duty. Generally, a neophyte, when a little reversal happens in life, a very small thing when it goes wrong, when it goes not as per his calculations, immediately the first blame goes towards Krishna, the Lord, and he gives up bhakti. Process of bhakti, the faith completely gets diminished. Forget about faith. The whole process is just abandoned. But here, a sadhaka is supposed to have what Prabhupada is writing. Accidents never deviate him from his duty. There could be so many accidents. That's why these are accidents, which nobody plans. And they happen in life, but they never deviate him from his duty. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 2.14, Agama apaino anityas tam stitikshasva bharata. Agama apaino anityas. These are this sukha, dukkha, this winter and summer, they'll keep coming. They'll come and they'll go, but tam stitikshasva bharata, tolerate them. Endures all such incidental occurrences because he knows that they come and go and do not affect his duties. In this way, he achieves the highest perfection in yoga practice. So this purport of this verse, 4 verses, very, very powerful verses. It ends by Prabhupada's one statement. In this way, he achieves the highest perfection in yoga practice. So when Krishna is talking about Ashtanga Yoga, he starts with Yama, Niyama, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and then he comes to the stage of Samadhi, and he has explained this is the perfection stage of, this is the highest perfection in yoga practice. Then you would have thought, okay, great. So we have done that. We have achieved it. What else remains? Interestingly, next verse, he says, Sanishchayena yoktavya yoga anirvinna chetasa sankalpa prabhavan kamams tyaktva sarvan aseshataha Manasyevendriya gramam viniyamya samantataha. Why Krishna has to bring this verse here? The reason being, our free will is not always available for us to engage voluntarily in devotional service. It's not there. That is why Krishna highlights Sa Nishchayena Yoktavya Yoga Anirvinna Chetasa. You need a strong determination. That is, without that determination, the translation of this verse, translation is one should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with undeviating determination and faith. We saw that verse of Kali Yuga. First thing that happens is faithlessness. A small mistake by anyone, even in spiritual organizations, they are like this. Immediately, because the whole atmosphere is surcharged with hypocrisy and faithlessness. Where do you develop faith in these things? It goes away, it rubs you off. And by the time you realize your faith has gone, it is shaken. So that is why Krishna is telling one should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with undeviating determination and faith. Determination is dependent on the faith in the process and faith in the destination. If the process and destination, if somebody lacks faith, then he cannot have determination. So one should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with undeviating determination and faith. One should abandon, without exception, all material desires born of false ego, and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. The word which Krishna uses here is called Viniyamya Samantata. Viniyamya Samantata. It's a very beautiful expression. If you pay attention, earlier days there used to be a castle, and the castle used to have water surrounding it so that the enemies cannot enter. So Viniyamya Samantataha is actually mind is in the center, and all the senses are controlled around the mind. Only when he wants to open one door, he can enter, he can go out, or he can come in. That is the kind of determination which is required for the yogi. He has to control all his mind and senses. I'll talk about it. What is the necessity of controlling this mind and senses? Because Krishna is again and again talking about that. We will see that, because this verse is the verse that we are talking about today. We'll talk about this. But here he's highlighting you need to have that determination to practice this. Without that determination, this is not possible. And for a yogi who's living in a secluded place, there are two things which help a person to develop that determination or to stay determined throughout his sadhana life, sadhana bhakti: association of devotees and mercy of the Lord. When association of devotees is there, your faith is, it flows from a person who has got higher faith to you, and then you become You become fixed in your true position. And there is mercy of the Lord. But whereas for a yogi who's all by himself, he has to do it all by himself, which is a very difficult thing. That is why Krishna is telling, Sa nischayena yuktavya yoga anirvinna chetasa. Sankalpa prabhavan kaman styaktva sarvan aseshataha. Manasyevendriya gramam viniyamya samantata. Prabhupada in the purport talks about this particular thing. No matter how many times we hear, it is very important. One highlight I want to talk about this, exactly what Prabhupada is writing in the purport. Pay attention. As for determination, one should follow the example of the sparrow. One should follow the example of the sparrow who lost her eggs in the waves of the ocean. Imagine a small sparrow. I don't know how big will be her eggs, maybe very small eggs. It got lost in the waves of ocean. Visualize it. It is gone. A sparrow laid her eggs on the shore of the ocean, but the big ocean carried away the eggs on its waves. The sparrow became very upset and asked the ocean to return her eggs. Natural. It's my children, right? It's gone in the waves of the ocean. She got angry and she asked the ocean to return the eggs. The ocean did not even consider her appeal. So the sparrow decided to dry up the ocean. She began to pick out the water in her small beak, and everyone laughed at her for her impossible determination. The news of her activity spread, and at last Garuda, the gigantic bird carrier of Lord Vishnu, came to see the sparrow. Garuda was very pleased by the determination of the small sparrow, and he promised to help. Thus Garuda at once asked the ocean to return her eggs, lest he himself take up the work of the sparrow. The ocean was frightened at this and returned the eggs. Thus the sparrow became happy by the grace of Garuda. It's a beautiful storytelling. Actually, this Prabhupada has put this story here. It's a story which is told by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on this purport. Then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is explaining. What he says is, Garuda represents spiritual master. The sparrow is all of us. And the eggs, which is washed away by the waves of ocean, or this gigantic ocean that swept away the eggs, they are like this material world or the material nature, which take away the Krishna consciousness or the Krishna prema from our heart. It goes away. So that is why that sparrow-like determination is very important. Unfortunately, we don't realize that it is taken away. It is gone from our heart. And second thing is we don't put enough determination. Garuda came to his rescue, her rescue, only because he had that determination. There was no other reason. Similarly, a disciple of a spiritual master should be determined to follow come what may. There is no excuse here. That determination attracts the mercy of spiritual master. And then he can, when the mercy of spiritual, yasya prasadat bhagavat prasad, yasya aprasadan nagati kutopi. So that mercy of, when we please spiritual master, we actually attract the mercy of Krishna. What is those ocean in front of Krishna or in front of Garuda, in front of, it can immediately be dried. Prabhupada says, if you just hold on to my dhoti, I'll kick Maya out. Means if we just stick on to his instructions, if we realize our helpless position and hold on to his with determination, come what may, there will be challenges, there will be disturbances, there will be wind which will be blowing, but if we stick on to that, then the mercy comes. So this is why this is very important to remember the importance of determination. Why did Krishna bring this determination immediately after telling that, what is the perfectional stage? There is a need for that determination. Then in the last class, we saw Sanai Sanai Uparamayat, Buddhya Dhriti Grihitaya, Atma Samstam Manah Kritva, Nakinchit Api Chintayat. But by the way, before going, actually, I was talking about the Ashtanga yogis who, they have to do it on their own. But for devotees, Prabhupada talks about Utsaha Nischaya Dhairya, Tattat Karma Pravartana, Sanga Tyagat Sato Vrittehe, Sadbir Bhakti Prasidhyati. These 6 things if we do, Utsaha Nischaya Dhairya, Tattat Karma Pravartana, Sanga Tyagat Sato Vrittehe, give up the association of materialistic people. Give up, Sanga Tyaga, Sato Britte, follow in the footsteps of devotees. Sadbir Bhakti Prasiddhyati. One will be fixed properly in Bhakti. That is a process for the Bhakti yogis. Astanga yogi, it is very difficult. How do they do that? It's impossible. That's why that thing has been highlighted by Krishna to have that determination in there. Then he says, Sanai Sanai Ruparame, Buddhya Dhriti Grihitaya, Atma Samstam Manah Kritva, Nakinchidapi Chintayat. Yesterday we saw this. Buddhya Dhriti Grihitaya. We need intelligence which can discriminate, and Dhriti. Dhriti is that conviction to do the right thing. Both are required. Sanai Sanai. Gradually one can come to that stage. Sanai Sanai Ruparame, Buddhya Dhriti Grihitaya, Atma Samstam Manah Kritva. Mana has to be controlled. Atma Samstam Manah Kritva, Nakinchidapi Chintayat. This verse we saw yesterday, and gradually, step by step, with full conviction, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. And in the purport, Prabhupada talks about pratyahara, right? How you can withdraw. By proper conviction and intelligence, one should gradually cease sense activities. This is called pratyahara. The mind being controlled by conviction and meditation and cessation of the senses should be situated in trance or samadhi. So that is the process of being fixed, how to remain fixed in that samadhi. Now the challenge today is, despite knowing this, despite trying to follow this process, one big impediment is our own mind, which keeps going here and there. And this is a very direct and powerful instruction, which Krishna is telling, Yato Yato Nischalati Manas Chanchalam Asthiram Tatas Tato Niyamityat Atmani Eva Samnayat. If you closely see, I'm not going into the verse and trying to say what is there, but it's a very powerful verse. Just the translation is telling, from whatever and wherever the mind wanders, due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. It is not, if you think you are able to bring your mind back, then you can try. If you're not able to, it's okay, no problem. The word used here is nayet. In Sanskrit, nayet means you must bring in, must certainly withdraw. Yato yato nishalati manas chanchalam astiram tatas tato niyamaittad atmani eva vasamnayat. If we remember this one thing, we have to bring back our mind. We must certainly withdraw. If you want to remember just one thing from this verse today and you forget everything else, bring the mind back, bring the mind back, bring the mind back, bring the mind back. Our temple commander, now Prabhu is temple president in Hyderabad, Satyagur Prabhu, he always used to say this verse is very important for sadhakas. Very, very important. Yato yato nischalati manas chanchalam astiram tatas tato niyamaitat atmani eva vasamnayat. He used to ask us to chant this before chanting even Hare Krishna mantra every day. 4 lines in this. It says, from wherever and whatever it wanders. Why it is wandering? Because mind is fickle and unsteady. Chanchalam and astiram. From there, restrain it and make it obedient to oneself. If you see this verse, we all have experienced this in our life also. Mind wanders. We want to do something good. We want to try. We want to sit. We want to listen. We want to chant. We want to be there before the deity, but mind is somewhere else. Mind is giving some other excuse. Mind is telling, don't do it. Some other things are important. And by the time we go and do that, we realize that we missed the opportunity of doing it right when that opportunity was given to us. Because at that time, mind is busy speculating or doing something. And we wonder, why did this mind go? Why couldn't I control this mind? Reason being, if you see this verse, there are 3 adjectives which are used for mind. Nischalati, chanchalam, asthiram. They're not small words. Nischalati is, in the translation Prabhupada has used as wonders, but in the word-to-word meaning, it is very agitated. Mind is agitated. Nischalati, chanchalam, it is flickering. Though they look similar, there is difference. Flickering, it goes all over. Everywhere it goes, flickering. Asthiram, it's unsteady. It is so difficult and it is so horrible. If a person, doesn't pay attention, this remains like this forever in his life. That is why it is so important. In this 26 verses that we have read in 6th chapter, I don't know how many times the mind and senses control has come. Why it is so important? I'll come back. What happens is, when we are trying to follow this practice of Bhakti Yoga with Nishchaya, with determination, with understanding, yes, I've heard, I've read, 1 day, 2 day we do. But imagine, I used to remember this kind of toys we used to have, where if you give chabi, then it will start playing, it will start doing something. As long as the chabi is not given, chabi nahi diya hai, then it is fine. It's just standing like that, doesn't have any energy. The moment that chabi is given, it starts dancing, it starts making some noise. That chabi is actually the modes of material nature, which is controlling. It is because we have a material body, we don't have control over it fully. So even though I have a determination which is not very strong, even though I have a faith which is also not very strong, even though I want to follow because there is a chabi given by the modes of material nature, I start acting. Especially when the modes of passion and ignorance start acting on us, mind goes haywire. It goes anywhere. What Krishna is telling here is bring it back. Don't allow the mind to wander. If the mind goes wherever it goes and you allow it to happen, then it becomes a habit, it becomes a pattern, and it becomes so difficult that you ultimately give up because your mind is not there. Mindlessly any work is done, it actually doesn't give you satisfaction. So the solution which is given in this verse, if you want to remember this also, bring back your mind, bring back your mind, bring back your mind. This is what Krishna is telling. Yato yato nischalate, 2 times yato, tato tato he's telling. Remember always what is our constitutional position. Ultimately, we are the servant of Krishna. If this one thought is there, no matter what feelings we are having, actually it starts with the thought, then the feeling, and then the willing. And then wherever it has gone, whether it is lust, anger, greed, or it is grudges, or it is some resentment, something, it has gone, bring it back. I'm not this body, I'm not this emotions. It solves 99% of the problem. In one place, Prabhupada is writing. So always the trick is wherever, whatever it is gone, you bring it back and focus yourself, recenter yourself that you are servant of Krishna. If that focus, that understanding is coming, 90% of the problem is, 99% of the problems are over. But the important thing to remember is to bring back the mind. That is what Krishna is telling here. By niyama, and we will see there are more words to it. Actually, the word used here is withdraw. From wherever and wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it. We go and withdraw cash from ATM. So when we go and withdraw cash from ATM, the ATM machine should have cash, and I should have in my account that much of money that I want to withdraw. Do you think withdrawing the mind is easy? The mind, when it is not in our control, when it is in control of something else, how do I withdraw it? It's very difficult, but it is possible. And Krishna says this, and this beautifully it is explained. Let's see this for some time. Rupa Goswami's instruction in Nectar of Devotion, he is telling, Yena tena prakarena manah Krishna niveshayat. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Yena tena prakarena manah Krishna niveshayat. This is our ultimate goal. Somehow or other, Savai mana Krishna padaravinda, manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. All the instructions are telling the mind should be, in the lotus feet of Krishna. Bhajo hure mana Sri Nanda Nandana abhaya charana ravinda. You want to become fearless? The mind should be, always there in the Nanda Nandana abhaya charana ravinda, in his lotus feet. So yena tena prakarena mana Krishna nivesaya. Somehow or other, I have to focus my mind in Krishna's lotus feet. Smartavyam satatam Vishnu, vismartavyam na jatuchit. These two things, sarva eva vidhi nishedho kinkara, what is it? Rest all injunctions, whatever is there in Vedic literatures, they're subservient, they're servant to these two instructions. Smartavyam satatam Vishnu, vismartavyam na jatuchit. And that is possible by our mind. We can remember the Lord only by our mind. So mind has to be engaged in this. And this is Rupa Goswami's instruction. But how do we do that? Now, I'll give you some examples which will help us to see how do we do this and what are the traps of my mind. First thing that we need to understand from Bhagavad Gita, as we have been seeing, reading, and being practitioners of Bhakti Yoga, Krishna says that we are actually Yantra Rudhani Maya. 18.61 verse. Iswara Sarvabhutanam Hriddese Arjuna Tishtati Brahmayan Sarva Bhutani Yantra Rudhani Maya. We are actually sitting in a car or a yantra. And mind you, this yantra has a gross part and a subtle part. Subtle part is our mind, intelligence, false ego, but still that is a part of the yantra. That is not me. And there is a gross part, which is the body. And interestingly, what is happening is the body has these senses, right? Eyes, nose, ear, tongue, and all these things. And the subtle body has this mind, which has got all the impressions which are stored. These two things, since they are covering the soul, and since they are impure in themselves, we have an improper understanding. Senses, mind you, if you are seeing, like if you are wearing a specs and the specs has got a red color or a blue color or a green color or a yellow color, the world will appear red, blue, green, yellow in that particular order, right? Whatever color I'm wearing, the specs, the world appears like that. If I've got an impure senses, first thing is our senses which are impure. And then on top of that, I've got the mind, which is also uncontrolled. So then these two deadly combinations doesn't allow the senses, the transcendental senses to arise. And I'm not able to experience the transcendental bliss. That is why the first instruction of Krishna is to purify the senses and control the mind. Purifying the senses is possible. If you see Rupa Goswami's instruction, he says, Rishikena Rishikesa Sevana. What's the first line? Sarvopadhi vinirmuktam tatparatvena nirmalam Rishikena Rishikesa Sevanam Bhaktiruttama. Rishika is called the senses, and Rishikesha is the controller of the senses. Only when the senses are engaged in the service of Rishikesha, the controller of the senses, they get purified. Tat paratvena nirmalam. This is the first thing. But we may still do this. We may be engaged in devotional service of Krishna, but our mind may be still, wandering into something wrong things. Mechanically, externally, outwardly, I'm doing devotional service. Mind is somewhere else. It's not mindful. Mind is somewhere else and doing something else, because mind is not controlled. And mind, if it has to be controlled, there are ways and means. And let's see, I want my mind to be free from distractions. I want to sit and meditate on the Lord. I want to chant the names of the Lord, but mind has all these distractions. Of course, beautifully, if we see the soulful japa, Prabhupada, Madhu Pandit Prabhu is saying that, we should lock our attention, and attention is the energy of the soul. From the beginning, that I am going to lock my attention for 2 hours of chanting, come hearing. So when we do that, attention is arrested there. But even then, still mind may have distractions. Why the distraction comes, we'll come to that. But this distractions, when it comes, we want to have concentration. Our goal is to have concentration. And we want ideally this distraction to change to concentration. But how can it happen? What Krishna says is, distractions is reject the unfavorable, and concentration is accept the favorable. It is possible by superior intelligence. We need to have superior, stronger, sharper intelligence to control the mind. And how do you develop a superior intelligence? It comes from scriptures and Guru. There's no other way. These are the two ways by which our intelligence can develop, by scriptures and Guru. And then what happens? Then we can do this introspection within to analyze our thoughts. What kind of thoughts? Because mind has got these 3 functions: thinking, feeling, and willing. What kind of thoughts I'm having in my mind? Where is it going? Where am I getting attracted to? What is my natural, for the mind, what is the natural driving thing? Once we analyze our thoughts by introspection, we can align our thoughts with noble values. The noble values come from Guru and Shastra. So when we have those noble values, we need to align our thoughts with that. And when we do that repeatedly, regularly, when the mind is wandering, we are bringing it back. Yato yato nishchalati manah chanchalam astiram tato tato niyamita atmani eva vasam nayat. Then gradually mind becomes controlled. It's a very long, tedious process. It is not just during chanting. It is every time, throughout our life, all day, when mind is going. Anywhere it is wandering other than Krishna, we need to learn this art and technique of bringing it back. See, always the reference point is scriptures and guru. See as per them if what we are doing is going to please the spiritual master, if it is as per the scriptures. If the answer is no, just give it up. Just, this is unfavorable. This is, reject this thought and align ourselves with the values, with the noble values. I know we started a little late, but I want to, okay, so I just want to summarize this whole flow chart in this line. The mind can be brought from distraction to concentration, by using scriptural intelligence to analyze its thoughts and align them with the values. So from distraction, it can be brought back to concentration by scriptural intelligence to analyze its thoughts. These are all, we don't even analyze. We think it's okay. Once in a while it is coming. Like yesterday, Prabhu was telling so many examples of those, those four animals, be it the pigs, or be it the goat, or the camel, or that parrot. In all those four examples, basically, like all of those four animals, we also think our goal, if somebody asks us, like parrot, we say goal is to go back home, back to Godhead. But all our activities, all our other thoughts, they are completely opposite. There is something else going on. But when we ask someone, what's your goal? What do you want to do? I want to go back home, back to Godhead. So that is why the mind can be brought back from distraction to concentration by using scriptural intelligence to analyze its thoughts and align them with the values. Now, I want to talk about three things which leads to the distraction of mind. The first thing that happens, which leads to distraction, or why distraction happens in our mind, is from a verse from Bhagavatam. It says, Sanni karso atra matyanam annadarana karanam gangam hitva yatha yambhas tatratyo yati suddhe. It's a very beautiful verse. The translation of this is very simple. Everybody knows. And this is a very big problem which happens in devotional life, in the community of devotees where we are living together. The thing that happens is called familiarity breeds contempt. Familiarity breeds contempt. Prabhupada is, the verse is telling, there is an example which is given. Imagine if somebody is living in the banks of Ganges. Ganges is flowing right next to his house. Every day morning he's getting up, he's seeing Ganges like we are seeing snow. And we're just seeing Ganga beh raha hai, it's normal pani hai. What is the big deal about it? If he has to take dip, he's thinking of going to some other place like Rishikesh or some Allahabad to take dip, because this Ganga water is mere ghar ke samne pani. Why did this is the same Ganges water? But how did he develop this mentality? Familiarity breeds contempt. So how it happens? Only when I hear from another devotee who's from a different loka, somewhere, wherever it is, that something happens, Prabhuji. Idhar to pata nahi, kuch nahi ho raha hai. Idhar kya problem hai? Either we are talking from Bhagavad Gita or we are talking from some other words. It's our mind where we develop this. Oh, this devotee is giving class today. It's okay. It's to miss kar denge, chalega. और शाम को क्लासेस, इवनिंग को मैं क्लास सुनता नहीं हूँ. No, कैसे सुनूंगा? मैं तो थक जाता हूँ. I will take rest. Morning Bhagavatam class only is for me. All kinds of this familiarity, and I think this subject matter is very well known to me. What is the need? And I take this liberty, and so what happens? The values go down. Morning Mangalarti. हाँ ठीक. Very nice प्रभु जी. आप लोग कीजिए मंदिर में. हम तो कहाँ आ सकते? घर में करते हैं. घर में कैसे? How will you do in घर में? Is it possible to do it at home? If it would have been possible to do everything at home, I just know Hare Krishna mantra from my guru. I have got the scriptures. I'll do it myself. Cannot be done. Interestingly, I don't know if you know, in Nectar of Instruction, I want to say connection to this, there is a verse which comes, which is called Iti Upadesha Saram. Tannama Rupa Charitadi. Tannama Rupa Charitadi Sukirtananu, Smratyo Krameda Rasana Manasi Niyojya, Tishkan Braje Tadanuragi Jananugami, Kalam Nayad Akhilam Iti Upadesha Saram. This is the essence of all Upadesha, Iti Upadesha Saram. Tannama Rupa Charitadi Sukirtananu, Smratyo Krameda Rasana Manasi Niyojya, Tishkan Braje Tadanuragi Jananugami, Kalam Nayad. Mind you, that word Nayad is there in today's verse also. Nayad, that same. You must. Kalam Nayad Akhilam Iti Upadesha Saram. In that, the words used is Tad Anuragi Jananugami. One has to stay in association of devotees. It's a must. There is no way that one can achieve perfection, because it's a personal process. Okay, one may say that I'm doing all mindful, spiritual, soulful, all this japas. Why do I need to associate with devotees? I've understood the technique. I'll do it myself. I'll be happy. Not true. Why it is not true? When Madhvani Prabhu says this, actually in one of the songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, when will that day come when I will develop respect for every living entity? And when that happens, that pure Nama will manifest in my tongue. It's so important. So, but when this familiarity develops, then we don't value each other. We don't value the morning program. We think something new has to happen. Something has to happen. And we are not present in those activities. In the last class, if you hear of Madhupani Prabhu, he's telling about the quality of association. We are hearing, we are reading, we are doing some spiritual activities, but how are we associating? How are we associating when we are doing that activity? Suppose I am listening in Bhagavatam class or Bhagavad Gita class. If I sit with lots of filters in my mind, 9 baje class khatam hona hi hai, no, 1 ho gaya, mera kya hoga abhi? Some such things, then it's all these are big hindrances. Or this devotee, what he knows, how is he going to speak? Some things, some filters, these are all familiarity. So when we develop familiarity, the value for these things go down slowly. And that leads to offense slowly. The next step is, these are offenses. First thing is you lose value. Second thing is you start finding faults and start seeing something wrong in that. Third thing is you don't have taste in that. Finished, over. ठीक है, भागवतम भगवद गीता पढ़ना है, मैं सुना हूं, हर बार सुनता हूं, फिर भी मैं नहीं पढ़ता हूं. क्यों नहीं पढ़ रहा हूं? क्यों नहीं? Why that inspiration is not coming? Because all these things these things we take it granted, that there is an association of devotees which is available. We take it granted. There is some, I'm supposed to pay some respect or do something. I'm standing before the deities. Deities are present. There is Srila Prabhupada who's giving this instruction. I should do this service. This is deity service. All these things go away because we develop familiarity. It's a Bhagavatam words. In this world, familiarity breeds contempt. For example, one who lives on the banks of the Ganges might travel to some other body of water to be purified. This is the first reason why the mind goes away. We are not able to sit properly in one place. We are not able to focus, even though physically we are there. It's very difficult. Because we have to be very careful to understand what we are given by Prabhupada is not some ordinary thing. Despite our zero qualification, negative qualification, we have been given this. If we lose value, it's gone. It's over. Second thing, why this mana goes, why it happens is because we compare ourselves. One of the biggest problem in devotee's life is comparison. Even if I'm practicing this sadhana bhakti, if I compare myself with someone, and the moment I compare, and if I see somebody else has been blessed or bestowed or has been given something extra which I don't have, immediately our mind develops envy. Why did he have that? How can he have that? Why am I not having it? So this The moment we do this, and if for some reason someone doesn't have what we have, then I develop pride. Doesn't know anything. I've got so many things. Pride comes. Comparison always makes us unhappy, disturbed, and it leads to only problems. Our devotional life is meant to be. There is one quote of that spirit and that mindful japa Prabhu gives. It is 2.6. The devotee has to be simple. I'm a dasa, dasanu dasa. I'm not come here to prove my point, to say that how superior I am, how materially qualified I am. That moment that comparison comes with anyone, I know so much. I have been there for such a long time. Automatically, I'm looking down upon someone. There's a pride. Or if someone has something, and even if I'm a devotee, I'm whatever I am, the moment I start seeing those things in that angle, automatically envy comes. It's a natural thing. So that is why the mind, when it is told in the 17th chapter, there are austerities of the mind. Mind is like that vehicle which is going, you have to press the brake. Brake is like that austerity. Don't go so far. Press it. Satisfaction is an austerity of mind. Be satisfied in whatever position, Krishna. Make the best use of the bad bargain. Don't compare yourself with other one and then see that, well, he has got so many things, I've got so big problem. Mind goes here and there, becomes difficult, it's agitated, disturbed, and it is difficult to control. Third thing which makes problem is the syndrome of right and wrong. Prabhuji, ye galat hai. Yes, hona nahi chahiye. This is the way it has to be done. If this is not done, then it is all wrong. This is all material conditioning. In material world, in material conditioning, there is always a 0 and a 1, right? So if either it is right or it is wrong, and we carry that mentality even in spiritual world, where there can be many rights and many wrongs. And the moment we get into this right and wrong syndrome, we actually get disturbed. Oh, aisa nahi hona tha, kaise ho gaya? Main itna karke samjha raha hu, I'm trying to, give them all these things and they're not listening to me. Madhupani Prabhu was giving one example in one class. I don't know how many of you remember, but he was telling that when he was a temple president in his early days, in young days, there was one festival where they were having a festival meeting, and he was asking what should be given to those visitors who are coming. There were 4 or 5 options which came up. One was vada, one was papad, one was kheer, halwa. नहीं, वो सब नमकीन था. वड़ा, पापड़, मिक्सचर, ओके, और खिचड़ी नहीं था. Same like vada, nipad, vipad, ऐसा some 3-4 items were there, and then they were not able to decide which one to give, and they asked Madhupani Prabhu, and he said vada. Let's give vada. So then Prabhu was telling there were 2 or 3 people who had told papad, nipat, and other things, and this thing was not heard. Now they were very, very angry. And one of them was telling, every time I'm giving suggestion, you are not hearing. My view is always not taken care, and somebody else's view is given. So you see, these are all problems of our life which affect our bhakti, our mind. Ultimately, we have to understand there is karma. There is some karma which is there. I'm not free from all those things. Even though I have taken up with this process of devotion, there are certain situations which I created. I just have to tolerate. Tatya anukampam susamikshamanu bhunjan evatma kritam vipakam yadbhag bapubhir vedadhan namaste jiveta mukti pade sadaya. This verse of Brahma, very powerful, very, very powerful. You cannot ascertain that why this happened. Why did he do this? Prabhu said, I am the first amongst the equals. I've got some right. I took this decision. Let's go ahead with this. Let's go ahead. Stop worrying in your mind. This was not done. As a matter of duty, we can go and explain and share our concerns. But after that, we have to give it up. Because if it affects our mind too much, bhakti cannot be practiced. Where is one is going on and analyzing, why did this happen? Why did I could have done this in a different way? So, as Prabhu was saying, there could be many rights, many wrongs. Don't get into this. Any time when devotee has left, one of the things, they're all small things which drift a person away from bhakti. Not big things. Not very, very big things. Small things, very small thing. But that small thing becomes big, 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 and then it is over. So as far as the senses are concerned, the senses need to be controlled by engaging themselves in Krishna's service. As far as the mind is concerned, it has to be controlled by superior intelligence. And the intelligence has to be fed by the instructions from Guru and the scriptures. Mind also, and there is another thing which you will see in the, at least I am seeing that, in those quotes of Prabhu, there is another word which is used called Chittam. Chittam is used by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita as well. When he says the Chatusloki Bhagavad, of course, here also Yatra Paramatte Chittam is there, but in 10.9, Machitta Madgata Prana, Machitta Madgata Prana, my heart, the devotee's heart is in Krishna, not mind. Mind is still on a material platform. Machitta Madgata Prana, Bodhayanta Paraspara, Tushyanti cha Ramanti cha. Kathayan. Tushyanti cha Ramanti cha. Yeah, 10.9. The word that is used there is Machitta, right? My heart. So our heart should go to Krishna. This Chitta, that Chitta has got all the impressions. I see a form of someone and it agitates my mind, agitates my senses. And that agitation, since I have these are all stored, I don't have control. I just keep doing it. One of the devotees was giving this example of a CNC machine. I don't know how many of you have seen a CNC machine. You've seen computer numerical control. What is a CNC? Numerical control CNC machine. Basically, what happens in the CNC machine? It's a mechanical, big, huge lathe machine which can cut into, the job can be cut and done in very nice way. Computer numerical control. So what happens is when you feed the CNC with a program, it starts acting. So like that, when the mind is fed, when it is an uncontrolled mind, if the mind is fed with something, some picture, some form, some movie, some things which I should not have seen, automatically the senses become active. They start acting in that way. So it is a very helpless process. And when it goes to that thinking, feeling, and willing, then it is difficult to control the mind. It is like Prabhupada gives this example: if the fan is running and somebody is going and trying to control the fan, running fan, moving fan with his hand is going to be cut. That's why the mind, when it is uncontrolled, it is out of this thing. It's impossible to control it. Only when the switch is there, with that you can control, and that switch is intelligence. Intelligence has to be sharp to know, to dictate, and to bring the back mind, to bring back the mind at the right time. Wherever it is going, you have to bring it back. So that is why the principle which a self-realized yogi follows with respect to the mind, as per the purport, is one who controls the mind is called a Goswami, and one who is controlled is called Godasa. Mind you, Krishna gives the intelligence to people who are practicing devotion. Desham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti. By that one can come back. Desham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi. The intelligence comes from the super soul when one is able to control the senses and one is engaged in devotional service. He's a Goswami. But one who is not able to control the senses, he's Godasa, he's following the dictation of the senses and the mind. There is a word which is used here, is called Goswami knows the standard of sense happiness. And what is the sense happiness that Goswami follows? He's not indulging in any of those activities. He has shunned all these things because he's experiencing those higher tastes. There is one very beautiful act which used to come earlier, and I'm a big fan of this. I used to be a big fan of this act. I'll show that. If you are able to hear the sound or not, you tell me online. Able to hear the sound?
No problem.
उस्ताद नजर की उस्ताद पहचान, हजारों में एक चाय, ताजमहल, क्या रंग क्या महक। वाह उस्ताद।
अरे हुजूर वहाँ ताज बोलिए।
वाह ताज।
This ad used to come earlier. It conveys a concept very strongly. So the person actually tastes many kind of tea, and finally he says, "Wah Taj, wah," right? Zakir Hussain himself says, "Arey Huzur, wah Taj boli," or whatever that fun. So like that, Goswamis are the connoisseur of pleasure. They've seen all these things, and they have finally concluded that real pleasure lies in the spiritual activities. Don't get. That's why the ustad, they are ustad, and they know what is the taste, where the real taste is. And that is why they have telling that that's why they are Goswamis, and they have concluded that. So Prabhupada is writing that Goswami knows the standard of sense happiness. There's no happiness in this. These are all botherations. 5.22, what is this? यही संस्पर्श जब होगा दुख यनो एवते ते आदि अंतवंत कौनते नतेषु रमते बुधा. An intelligent person doesn't indulge in this. And the last thing which Krishna says in this verse, of course, before going that, coming to that connoisseur of pleasure and where the pleasure is, if you see the first slide in the first mala that we are chanting, Prabhu is telling, thank you for revealing that the key to good japa is hearing of the sound string as he manifests bead after bead. Hearing is appreciative knowing and remembering of the sabda swarupa again and again. Now hearing means no hearing means no flow of Sachidananda energies into the soul and results in energy less tiresome japa. No hearing instead thinking other things is impersonal mechanical japa, which causes only very slow spiritual progress. If you really want to experience the transcendental pleasure, the secret is here. The holy name, the Lord is manifesting in front of us in the form of holy name, and we need to hear when we are producing that sound, that chanting. So no hearing means no flow of Sachidananda. If there is no flow, it is a tiring, energyless, tiresome japa. But when we are hearing, actually we can experience it. We can experience that transcendental pleasure, which that Vah Taj Vah or the Goswami are the, they know the standard of happiness. One can at least get the glimpse of that Sachidananda happiness when we hear, whatever time, mindfully when we are hearing, we are actually deserving to get that spiritual happiness. And when we experience that, automatically this material things, the sense gratification, all will go away. In conclusion, Prabhupada is saying Krishna consciousness is defined as serving Krishna with purified senses. As I said, the senses are currently impure. Impure senses need to be purified. Our mind needs to be purified. And the process of purifying the mind and the chittam and the intelligence is given. If we follow this, then our senses are purified. What happens is, that is the way of bringing the senses under, not only the senses will come to full control, and thus Krishna consciousness offers the highest perfection of yoga practice. Actually, one can experience the transcendental pleasure. That supra mind that we were talking about, superior consciousness can develop, the transcendental senses will develop when they become purified. When the mind is controlled, it will obey the instructions. And there is perfect harmony. These are some of the points from this verse. Any questions or any comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Prabhuji, initially you mentioned 4 points. In that second point was make best use of bad bargain, right? So I just wanted to understand more about that. I kind of didn't follow that.
Second point was not was actually accepting the bare necessities of life. So basically, best use of bad bargain. I think I've told this example many times. Initial days when I was working in Bombay, this in close to VT, Victoria Terminus, there will be some shops which are there on the street side. And those days they used to sell this Walkman. I don't know, and might not have seen, or I don't know if you have seen. Walkman used to be very trendy, where people, when they are going in trains or in plane, they'll put it in they'll hang it with their belt and they'll hear using that Walkman. Nowadays, nobody is using, I don't know if it gets manufactured also, it's over. So those days it was a craze. So in this street side, there was one man who was selling this Walkman. And I was new to Bombay and I was going and I saw it looked attractive. I stopped by and I was seeing one Walkman in one shop. And then I kind of opened and saw color, isme aur kuch hai. I started asking questions. One thing which I asked was, how much is it? The moment I asked that guy, how much is this? He said some 700 rupees. Okay. I said, okay, theek hai, 700 rupees, who's going to pay? I just kept it there and went. I was about to go. He called all his neighboring shopkeepers. Popata, Anna, Popanna, Gopanna, jo bhi tha, sabko bula diya. And then he said, this fellow, he has wasted my time. He has been seen and now he is going away. And then there's 4 or 5 of them. What do I do? I don't have a choice. I had to buy that Walkman. This is called bad bargain. There was no need for me to bargain with him, but I bargained and I got that. And then after having got that, in few days it didn't function. There's nothing that you can do. It doesn't work. It's from a street side, right? 700 rupees I paid. I was cursing. Finally, what I did was I started putting sandwiches in that and started taking to that has some space. The CD has to go or cassette has to go. I has to put sandwich in that and go. Make the best use of the bad bargain. Bad bargain is we've got this material body, which we didn't want. Now you've got this. This is a bad bargain. You're a spirit soul. You don't deserve to go through this material conditions of birth, death, old age, and disease, and all this mind has got emotions, all kinds of things. Why you at all have to go through? But you've got it now. That to your circumstances, your situation is very unique, very different from anybody else. What you are in, what position you are in. Don't complain about it. It is what it is. Make the best use of it by engaging that in Krishna's service. Any other question?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, this is Shara from Dallas.
Yes, yes.
Dandavat Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada. It's always a struggle to bring back the mind every time it flees and goes away from what you wanted to do, or to put your mind back in consciousness. Oh, sorry, let me do the video. It's always a struggle, Prabhu. So what are the best ways, like if you could give some examples, what are the best ways? You say engage them in Krishna consciousness, engage your mind, engage your senses, everything in Krishna consciousness. It's easy to hear, but then hard to practice. Some of the ways or examples to, how to actually put mind in control and then bring it back in the daily, dealings of hours with activities or anything that we do. For example, we do work and then we do home chores, things like that. It's always fleeting. It's always going away. Even if you want to say, for example, I wanted to hear Srila Prabhupada's lectures while I'm cooking or doing, so that I put my thoughts into, serving Krishna while I'm cooking and things like that. It still goes away. Prabhu, it's so hard to control. How do best ways? Thank you.
There is no easy answer, Madhuri. First thing, let me clarify. So if you are looking for some magic potion from this class and you drink it and it will be all right, it's not there. But there is one example which Satyagur Prabhu used to give, which I I loved. He used to say that when mothers are doing their household chores, they're busy doing something. The babies, small babies, toddlers, they'll be given some toys to sit there and play with them, but they do everything else other than playing with the toys. They'll go and put their finger in some fan, or some candle or something is glowing or something is happening. They'll try to put that, do something else. So when the mother sees, while she is cooking, she has two more eyes here, and in those back eyes, when she's seeing the baby is going and about to touch the fan or something, then she pulls the baby by the chaddi somehow and puts her back in that place where the toys are there. And the baby looks at the mom like this. Whatever. No, you have to put that, you have to play with those toys only. That's all is your freedom. That's all is your free will. Hey, like that, when our mind goes. Now the thing is, we are different from mind. And as Bhagavad Gita says, soul is superior to mind. So we are conscious of the fact when mind wanders. You don't have, literally like, the mind, like mother is catching the baby by the underwear or whatever, the napkin. I don't do, hey, mind, just bring it back. Sometimes, like our Charu Prabhu, he told that when it happens, he'll make a noise. Hey, come back, mind. And then that helps, but I'm just saying. So it is a conscious effort. Don't linger on that thing for a long time. Don't allow it to wander knowingly that it has wandered. So it doesn't happen overnight, but it requires practice, but it is doable. That is the first thing. And it is not something which only the struggling devotee has to go through. Even the person who's advanced, he also develops his thoughts, because Prabhupada quotes this Yamunacharya, Yadavadhi Mama Manu Krishna Pada Nava Nava Rasa. So whenever that thought comes of enjoying the opposite sex, he spits at that thought. So what I want to point out is that the thought may come to an advanced devotee, but they know how to deal with it. They spit at that thought. The difference between a neophyte devotee and an advanced devotee is the neophyte devotee doesn't know how to pull it back. He gets carried away with that thought. That is what Krishna is telling, that niyam, by regulation, you have to bring it back. Not just during chanting, even throughout our day when we are doing some activities, when we linger on those things for a long time, it's like, it's like some rashes, which is unwanted. You are doing, actually there is a itching sensation, and you are doing that. The moment you start itching it, you can see yourself there is some rash which is coming. And by the time, the solution is you go to a doctor if there is itching and get some treatment and get it done. But when we allow our mind to go in that direction, in negative way for a long, long time, then we are actually inviting troubles to ourselves, because that thinking only leads to feeling and willing. We develop negative emotions, we develop those willing, then willing becomes stronger than thinking and difficult to control at that time. So that is why this niyama, this is one of the ways of controlling the mind. The moment it goes, you have to bring it back. This is a simple instruction, but we don't follow it. We don't exercise it voluntarily, consciously. That's how the mind gets used to going in that way and becomes very difficult to control. I don't know if that helped you.
Yes, Prabhu, certainly. Thank you so much.
Actually, the trick is if we do our japa properly in the morning time. Prabhupada has given a very nice formula to us. He has made life simple. The problem comes when we try to act like experts and think that we know how to tamper or do things, we get into trouble. If we get up in the morning, finish our japa, do our morning sadhana properly every day, that's where the determination comes, right? And then whatever activities we are doing throughout the day, household activities or some corporate activities, school, college, whatever it is, we do that. Come back again in the evening. We spend some time on spiritual things. Spend quality time. Don't do it ritually. Ritualistic way will not help. that sufficiently meditating on those things which I'm doing. If I'm hearing something, if I'm trying to read something, when I make some points, understand that, meditate on it, and then explain it to someone. There is Bhagavatam says not just hearing or reading, but also explaining. When we explain that, then we start realizing those things. So the repeated contemplation, explanations, and those things help. So when we don't do it mechanically, and when you have someone, some devotee who has got some, you always will find someone who will find out something very different from the same verse that you have read. And when you have an association of such devotees, and somebody is jumping from his chair, oh my God, what a point Prabhupada has told, and you see that, and then you start seeing in your life, then you also develop that enthusiasm. And then over a period of time, you also start seeing those things in the books of Prabhupada. And that's how our spiritual life nourishes itself. It's an ever increasing ocean of bliss which we can tap to, but unfortunately, since we don't know the process or we don't follow it properly, it's all drudging. That's what life it is, very difficult. What is going on? This is how our life goes. Any other question? Okay, no questions. We'll stop here and continue to see this wonderful verses of Bhagavad Gita in the 6th chapter. Very interestingly, these are unfolded and Prabhupada has explained it. Before we end for today, I'll request all of you to come and plug your camera and raise your hands. We will chant once Hare Krishna mantra and close. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The Granthra Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.